अपने टैलेंट के दम पे तमाम दरवाजे खोले, किसी बड़े बाप की औलाद नहीं था वो आदमी, उसकी सक्सेस से तो तमाम लोगों को जो इंस्पिरेशन मिलती है वो नेक्स्ट लेवल है।
सर वो तो है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ रुकावट तो बहुत थी, क्योंकि ये लड़का जिस रफ्तार से आगे जा रहा था, बहुत तो रुकावट तो आएगी। तो रुकावट ऐसे आई कि हीरोइन को बोल दिया जाता था कि इसके साथ काम मत करो, तो करते भी नहीं थे। फिर किसी भी तरह कैसे भी कोई भी फिल्म मिल जाए, मैं बोला नहीं करना क्या, मेरे दिल में को ऐसे हारूंगा।
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Good morning, North America. Good afternoon, Europe, and good evening to everyone joining us from India. This is US Election Watch. I'm Allister in Washington, D.C. The headlines. Harris and Trump gear up for events in the battleground state of Michigan. Harris to hold 3 rallies while Trump prepares for a roundtable and a rally. North Carolina election officials hailed Thursday's terrific voting turnout despite storm damage. Georgia saw record numbers when it began early in-person voting Tuesday. Shot in the arm for the Trump campaign, billionaires Elon Musk, Miriam Adelson, and Dick Uihlein channel a total amount of $220 million into the groups supporting Trump. Marking a first, Harris to join the Obamas for voter events in the battleground states of Georgia and Michigan next week. With only 18 days left until Election Day, the race for the U.S. presidency is heating up. According to the ABC News Daily Tracker, Vice President Kamala Harris holds a slim lead over former President Donald Trump, ahead by just 2.4%. But the race is still tight. The forecast suggests Harris is favored to win 54 times out of 100, while Trump wins 46 times out of 100. Now, in key battleground states like Arizona and Pennsylvania, a new CNN poll of polls shows that the contest is neck and neck. The final stretch is, of course, here, and it's going to be a close one. Now, staying with all of that, with regards to the polls, Vice President Kamala Harris is changing her campaign strategy to appeal more to men and Republicans, while also intensifying her sharp attacks on Donald Trump. Democrats reportedly are increasingly worried about poll numbers showing Trump making gains. At a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, Harris took an unusual step, showing footage of Trump's remarks about an enemy within the country to argue that he is a threat to national security. Now, after weeks of focusing on policy and building her national presence, Harris is seen as returning to a more aggressive posture in her former role as prosecutor. The goal is to show strength to voters who are drawn to Trump's tough image.
Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged.
My opponent feels like she does not have to be here, which is deeply disrespectful.
With just a little more than 2 weeks left for the final showdown on November 5th, the U.S. presidential race is gathering momentum each day. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris seems to be in a statistical dead heat in swing states with her opponent Donald Trump. Reports suggest that this has prompted her campaign to change strategy to win over more men and Republican voters. According to reports, Democrats are anxious over polls showing Trump making strong gains.
And hello to everyone joining us from exciting Chicago.
Harris started off with a bang. She was able to raise a record amount in a short span of time, had a successful Democratic convention, and was widely hailed as the winner of her only debate with Trump.
President of the United States of America.
But that trajectory seems to have plateaued in the last 1 month. Reuters and Ipsos polling shows that Harris's edge over Trump narrowed from a late September lead of 7 points to just 3. On the other hand, she and Trump are more or less tied in the 7 crucial swing states that will decide the race.
Are we ready to fight for it?
Harris' campaign is also focusing on gathering support in the blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which were crucial to Joe Biden's victory last time. According to reports, the sentiment is similar on the Trump side, with top donors saying that former US president just needs to win one of the blue wall states to come back to the White House. Vishal Vivek reports for NDTV World.
Now let's get you more on the race to the White House. We are joined by journalist Ray Locker, also Nish Acharya. He is former advisor to the Biden administration, and Puneet Ahluwalia. He's a Republican strategist. Puneet, let me come to you first. Now, Kamala Harris is seeing her lead narrow with Trump in swing states. We just heard that in this story. Is that really good or bad? Because an immediate reaction, of course, is it's great for Trump. But on the flip side, I'm wondering if this would mean that more Harris voters who may be a bit complacent will get out there now and vote. Ordinarily, they may not have, but now they're going to cast those ballots.
Well, she's in trouble, as we know. She peaked at the moment she came out, and after that's been downhill. And she's had being propped up by the left supportive media, but that has got her only so far, because she's such a flawed candidate. Because, again, it's a continuation of Biden's failed presidency, which she's trying to inherit, and she's trying to distance herself from that. And on the other side, the issues on inflation, the cost of business, the concerns on immigration, the safety and security of American people, and more importantly, how much the cost of eggs and a gallon of milk cost are really hurting the people. And the economy is a big concern. And I think they all remember the good times under President Trump, how he navigated out of COVID, how successful the stock market was, and at the same time, there was peace in the world.
Okay.
So these are things people are concerned about. And Harris has a big issue. She's not being able to break through on her policies or her stance, and most importantly, on the way she's viewed on the international stage. So there is a problem, and there's always a blame game going on in the 7 place states between her staff, because they want to find someone who they're going to basically hold responsible when she loses. So there's a big concern, and people know that she's a leftist because she's left of Bernie Sanders. So there is concern, and now people are starting to see, and that's the reason why Trump is starting to go ahead.
Got it. Ray, how would you view these latest poll numbers? I know we're still some days away, but perhaps a silver lining here for the Harris campaign, getting those voters out on the final day on November 5th?
Well, I would just, first of all, challenge the way that the premise of this whole discussion. I mean, it makes it seem like she's cratering and they're flailing around trying to find a new strategy. Yes, she was up by 7 in some polls, and now she's up by 3. I would say that she was never really up by 7 points at all. I'd say 3 to 4 is a decent margin, what you're seeing now. Another thing is, when you talk about a poll of polls, it's kind of like eating that hamburger you buy at the store that's in a tube. It's a bunch of garbage put into one package. And so what you've seen, and you saw it 2 years ago, a lot of Republican-leaning polls flooding the market that skew this average. And you should never be combining results of various polls into one poll, because you don't know the methodology of all these polls. So my advice, find a poll that you count, that you trust, and keep following it and see what the changes are there. And finally, if you're a candidate, whether it's Harris or Trump, and you're not running scared, you're an idiot, because you get complacent now, you're going to lose. And I don't see complacency. Finally, you see that she's going after men and Republicans. That's an indication that she's doing well with Democrats and women. She's going after the core strengths of her opponent. And so I think you're seeing more of that now.
Nish, how would you digest all these polls? Like Ray was saying, we're getting one every second day. CNN talking about its poll of polls. As a Democrat, how would you view these latest numbers in this final stretch of the race?
So thank you so much for that. I would make 3 points. First, to our colleague from Virginia, if Harris and Biden were so bad, then why isn't Trump up by so much more? And why is he losing in so many states? So either Biden and Harris are not so bad, or Trump is significantly disliked. And that's why the race is so close. So I think we have to be honest about what's going on here in terms of the candidates themselves. There is a lot of people who really like Harris. There's concerns about the state of the world, about the overall global economy, wars in different places. And people are right to consider those things when they make their choices. Ultimately, I think they will trust Harris to make better choices on all of these things than Trump, and that's why I think she'll win. I think the 2 other points to remember is, one is the uniqueness of the U.S. system,
right.
and particularly since most of your viewers are in India, the U.S. system is state by state. It's by electors, which represent the elected Congress and the Senate. And so it's not that this is a close race nationally. Harris is probably going to win the popular vote by 7-8 million people advantage. It's that in these particular states, it is close, and it's a winner-take-all system for getting the delegate. And so it's critical. And then last thing I'll say here is that right now it's no longer about the polls. So I think paying attention to the polls this close is irrelevant. Now it is about get out the vote, and it's about probably 200,000 volunteers on the Biden-Harris side that are going to be mobilizing voters to actually vote. That's what matters now, not anything else.
I hope they're legal voters.
Ray, Nish, and Puneet, thank you very much indeed for your time. Sorry, unfortunately running out of time there. We'll try and get you back at some point in time within these next 2 weeks, and we can further talk about this, but need to leave it there at this point in time. Let's take a look now at other news. Ashwin Ramaswamy is an Indian-American Democrat running for state Senate in Georgia. In a video message on X, Ramaswamy claims his political opponent, Senator Sean Still, he's accusing Sean Still of racism and also posing a threat to his life and his family's life. We are going to go to Sean Still, who's the Republican incumbent, the state senator of Georgia. But before that, let's listen in to what Ramaswamy had to say in that Twitter or X video that he put out.
Today, I'm going public with Sean Still's racist and hateful attacks. Look at these mailers. Public notice, parents beware. If you see Ashwin Ramaswamy call the sheriff's office, deepfake images about, quote, soliciting children, look, it's completely patriotic to organize young people to come out and vote. Sean Still's mailers are full of lies. There was absolutely no request for contact information and no invasion of privacy. By the way, I'd know. I specialized in privacy and security at law school. I hold a top secret security clearance from the federal government, and I used to work in the state attorney general's office protecting our children online. Sean Still, who is criminally indicted, represents the worst of America. He abused his power to impersonate the sheriff's office, darkened my skin, and asked people to call the cops on me, his political opponent. Let me repeat, Sean Still asked people to call the cops on a person of color because he dared to challenge him, and because Sean Still is too afraid to lose this election. My family and I have been facing death threats. We've had to face fears for the security of me, my family, and all the young people throughout our campaign. Parents, how would you feel if your son or daughter stepped up to serve this great nation and your state senator, who's supposed to represent you, went around calling them a pedophile? What a disgrace, an insult to our communities and our constituents. My parents came here from India because they believed in the American dream, that no matter where you come from, no matter your background, if you work hard and serve this community, you could achieve success. We must not forget the American dream. There is no place for hatred in our community, and enough is enough. We must all come together to condemn Sean Still's hatred and bigotry. Sean Still is trying to tear young people down and trying to crush the hopes and dreams of young people and Gen Z. We cannot let that happen.
Now, we did try to reach out to Ashwin, but we haven't been able to reach him. We'll try to get more from him later on, but we do have with us State Senator of Georgia, Sean Still, with us. Sean, you heard that video, some rather disturbing accusations. What do you have to say to that?
First of all, thank you for having me on. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to join your network, so I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me a chance to set the record straight. First and foremost, Mr. Ramaswamy is grossly misstating a mailer that was done by an independent third party that I never saw until it hit mailboxes. It was not done by my campaign. It was done by some outside group. I saw the mailer. Most of Georgia Democratic leadership from his party saw it. They laughed at it. Ramaswamy did, and you can verify this with an open records request to the Fulton County school system. In January of this year, he made a request under his own name to request the names of every student, over 5,000 of them, from the schools, all the students, not just seniors who are 18 and eligible to vote, every one of them.
Right, Sean.
Second,
Sean, we get that, but I do understand that you did say that this has come from a third party, but what are you going to do about this? Clearly, this is coming from supporters, from people that support you. Is there any sort of message that you'd like to send out to them that this kind of these kind of mailers, this kind of information, it's misleading and is unacceptable?
If we want to talk about misleading and unacceptable, he made requests to get kids information. He solicited to get minors information. He wanted to get information about young children as young as 13 years old. That is unacceptable in any democracy, to be soliciting children to try to convince them on how to think and how to vote. So no, what he's doing is wrong. The mailer that went out didn't impersonate police. He is a liar and he is a fraud. Ramaswamy lives in his parents' basement and he doesn't even have a job. So to compare him to someone who is an adult with actual responsibilities in life, it is difficult to be able to look at that and think that he's doing something that's for the good of our children. If you're doing something for the good of our children, let them decide on their own. You don't have to solicit them. But as far as hateful mail, yesterday, yesterday, he dropped a mailer about me saying that I'm killing Georgia women about a vote.
Sean, I'm afraid we're running out of time here.
Never happened.
Sean, thank you very much indeed for your time here on NDTV's US Election Watch. That was Georgia State Senator Sean Still there responding to comments, allegations from Ashwin Ramaswamy, saying that he was threatened, his family was threatened after these flyers went out that were racist and actually even calling him a paedophile or insinuating as such. We'll keep tabs on that story. We'll try and get more from Ashwin when we are able to reach him. In other news now, it's been 3 months since the assassination bid against former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. Now an independent panel reviewing the Secret Service's failures has called on the agency to replace its leadership with people from the private sector. The recommendations, a part of a report commissioned by Homeland Security, outline security lapses that resulted from an absence of what they called critical thinking amongst agents and supervisors. This is the first assessment that bluntly identify failures on the part of senior agents on Trump's personnel and personnel details there. Now, in other news, how will the events in the last 24 hours change the course of the war in the Middle East? US President Joe Biden says the killing of Yahya Sinwar in Gaza raises the prospect of a ceasefire in the war that has gone on for over a year. Sinwar was the mastermind in the attack on Israel that shocked the world. It unleashed a battle which has no end in sight, with fears of a larger regional war still a huge concern. Sinwar was top of the hit list for the Israel Defense Forces. He was Hamas's top commander. All of this happening as worries continue about an imminent attack by Israel on Iran. Iran has long backed Hezbollah in Lebanon and has also strengthened groups like Hamas in Gaza. Now, to talk more about this, we're joined by Amy McKinnon. She is National Security and Intelligence Reporter at Foreign Policy magazine. Thanks very much, Amy, for your time this morning. Now, Amy Sinwar has been Hamas's leader inside Gaza since 2017, dominating the group's military wing. In your latest article, you've said that his younger brother is likely to succeed him. Tell us a little bit more about Junior Sinwar, if you like. Would he be someone that the current administration in the US and, of course, the next administration will be able to influence?
Well, there's, of course, a lot of speculation now as to what's going to happen to Hamas and its leadership following Sinwar's death earlier this week. And there's a number of members of the group that people are now looking to as potential successors of Sinwar. One, as you mentioned, is his younger brother, Mohammed, who was, de facto leader of the military wing of the group following the assassination of its former military leader earlier this year, Mohammed Deif. Now, the junior Sinwar worked closely with his brother, and he is regarded to very much be, according to experts, just as cold-blooded and ruthless as the elder Sinwar. So there's certainly no expectation that the group could really change its posture if he were to ascend to a leadership role. But analysts that I've spoken to have also said that Mohammed Sinwar may struggle to unify Hamas. He may struggle to command and control the remaining fighters that they do have after a year of war. There's, of course, a couple of other options of people who could succeed from the political wing in Doha. But again, there's a lot of questions about whether outside of the Gaza Strip, whether they will be able to exert much authority over fighters on the ground.
And one of those questions, the big one here, what happens to those hostages, some of those 100 hostages that still remain in Gaza? Sinwar's death, how does that now impact the release of those hostages?
Well, we're hearing a lot of urgency from hostage families who really see this as a potentially extraordinarily dangerous moment for their loved ones that remain in Gaza. Now with the group decapitated, with the death of Sinwar and a leadership vacuum, there's a lot of questions over, who is deciding the fate of these hostages, who's deciding where they're held, who's deciding what happens to them. And if the group does decide to lash out, could that potentially mean killing further hostages in the coming days? So there's certainly a lot of fear and a lot of sense of urgency that now is the time to get a deal. That's what a lot of the hostage families have been speaking about for months, of course, but particularly now in this crucial moment.
Right, thanks very much indeed, Amy. We have to leave it there for now. Amy there from Foreign Affairs, from Foreign Policy magazine. That's it for now on US Election Watch. I'm Allister D'Souza in Washington, D.C.
It's great to be helping out before my first grandchild arrives. And after having a few repairs myself, I need to make sure they'll all be protected. Which reminds me,
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
hi, I'd like a quick quote.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
Wow, that money could help with funeral costs or as a gift for my grandkid. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
He's going to be named after his granddad.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 470 4444 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
We all know animals have feelings. They depend on kindness, just like you and me. So imagine how they feel when they're beaten, starved, and unloved. Every minute, the RSPCA is called on to save animals in physical agony and mental torment. It's unbearable to see the pain in their eyes. We refuse to give up on them, but to rescue them from a life of fear, we urgently need animal lovers like you to donate today. Please call 0800 121 4260 or text KIND to 84903 to give £2 a month to the RSPCA. Your gift will help fund more life-saving rescues, more emergency treatment, and more gentle rehabilitation. Every month, you'll be helping to keep animals free from pain and sadness, so they can find the comfort and joy they deserve. Right now, across the country, thousands are suffering deliberate harm. But together, we can show animals what kindness feels like. Together, we can rescue them. So please, call 0800 121 4260, text KIND to 84903, or visit our website to start your monthly donation today. Thank you.
Make this Diwali royal with Royal Sweets. Enjoy authentic traditional sweets with your family. Order online at royalsweets.co.uk. You could lock in a fixed energy deal now and take the power back. Switch and save at uswitch.com.
As a dad, I know life's unpredictable. It's all fun and games until it's not.
You okay?
I want my kids to always be looked after. That's why I'm not putting things off anymore and protecting the life we've built by calling Smart Insurance.
Hi, how can I help?
Hi, like a quick quote, please.
Okay. You can choose a benefit amount up to £750,000 depending on your age.
Brilliant.
If you're a UK resident aged 18 to 64, you can apply with just a few health and lifestyle questions. For £250,000 of cover, the price starts at just £14.77 a month.
That's less than I thought. And could help my wife pay off the mortgage.
With our Smart Family Guarantee and 99% of claims having been paid, you'll have peace of mind.
That's good to know.
You'll also receive a 100% advance in the event of terminal illness and 10% cashback on your first year's premiums. That's the Smart Cashback. Plus, you get your choice of a free £125 gift card.
Protect the life you've built the smart way. To get a free quote today, call our specialist UK team on 0800 977 6797 or visit smartinsurance.co.uk.
This baby bear is terrified. Torn from her mother's paws at a tender age. They will force her to live alone in a tiny, filthy cage, like so many bears driven mad by loneliness, rubbing their wounds raw against the bars, suffering cruelly day after day, year after year, just for people's entertainment. Four Paws found little Potap crammed into a tiny, squalid cage. He'd been there for almost 9 years, lonely and isolated. There are so many more young bears who need your help. Please call 0800 038 0455 or text CUB3 to 78866 and give £2 a month to help rescue them. Every month, your £2 could help us free more bears, help give bears the veterinary care they need, and help them live happy, healthy lives in the freedom of our natural sanctuaries. Call 0800 038 0455 or text CUB3 to 78866 and give £2 a month and help Four Paws free bears from agonising torture. Please, don't leave these bears to suffer for a single day more.
At Tesco Mobile, our deals are so good you'll want to tell everyone. Oops! Get our 100 gig SIM for just £14 a month with club card prices, saving you an incredible £84. And that price is frozen for your whole contract. Join the customers who saved £9.5 million with frozen prices last year. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
You know, the toughest part of the whole grief, I'll never forget, is when Nan turned to me one time. And she goes, "John, I don't know what's happening to me."
Those weeks that he came in, with the 3 weeks that I could be his little girl again, nothing I can do will repay Marie Curie for doing that for. The amazing gift that they gave me was I was there at his last breath. He was there for my first.
In the calls, they just listen. She just said, "John, just speak."
Although people don't like to talk about it, but we're getting older, it has to be done.
You start to think about, well, what would I do? Where would I want to leave things? I will give everything back that I can to the hospice that gave me so much, not only in my name, but in Dad's name.
Who do I give my assets to?
I didn't realise you had a choice.
Give better end-of-life care to all. Get your free will guide today.
Had failed to provide any evidence. In fact, the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi said, and I quote, "The responsibility for the damage that this cavalier behavior has caused to India-Canada relations lies with Prime Minister Trudeau alone," unquote. At the heart of the crisis lies the contentious issue of Khalistani separatism and the murky circumstances surrounding Hardeep Singh Nijjar's assassination. India and Canada's relationship has long been fraught with tensions, historical grievances, nuclear proliferation concerns, and competing interests have contributed to the strain. But the key flashpoints are three. First, Khalistani separatism. Canada's perceived tolerance of separatist groups has infuriated India, which views them as a threat to national security. Second, Nijjar assassination. India's allegations of Canadian inaction and potential complicity have been met with denial and counter-accusations. Third, terrorism funding. Canada's failure to curb Khalistan supporter financing has drawn Indian ire. Remember, Canada is home to highest population of Sikhs outside their home state of Punjab. And there have been several demonstrations in recent years which have irked the Indian government. As rift takes form of full-blown diplomatic confrontation, trade and investment have taken a backseat. The rift may have far-reaching consequences for Indo-Pacific geopolitics. The question that we ask on the show tonight, will India and Canada finally find common ground, or will the diplomatic rift continue to widen? Can Justin Trudeau separate domestic political considerations with diplomatic bilateral relationships? Joining me on the show is Daniel Boardman, journalist of Canada. We also have Terry Milewski, who's an author, Blood for Blood, 50 years of the global Khalistan. Michael Kugelman is the director of South Asia Institute, the Wilson Center. We also have Dr. Tara Kartha, former director of National Security Council Secretariat, and we also have Pinak Chakravarti, former MEA secretary and ambassador. But first up, let's bring in Ujjal Dosanjh. He is a former minister, former Minister of Canada. He's joining me from Vancouver. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. Justin Trudeau's testimony of sorts has come amidst heightened diplomatic tension between India and Canada. There have been accusations which have been escalating since 2023. How do you see the fact that finally the Prime Minister of Canada has admitted that Canada doesn't really have enough evidence to allege that Indian government's links to the Khalistani terrorists killing?
If I remember correctly, what he said was that at the time he spoke in the House of Commons, all he had was intelligence. I don't think anybody has said that they don't have evidence today. I think that that's the distinction. Perhaps more importantly, the fact is that there are 4 individuals charged with the Niger murder. I don't think that we need to be in denial. I mean, we do understand that countries sometimes do dumb things to each other. And, there's no question in my mind or the minds of other Canadians that there is some truth to what Mr. Trudeau has said. The fact is that much of that is based on the same kind of evidence and information that was available in Pannu's case. I mean, this intelligence was given by the Americans. So I think the question more importantly is, where do we go from here? How do we repair a relationship that was once good after having been weak at one time during the nuclear explosions sometime a couple of decades ago?
Okay, Mr. Dosanjh, given the tensions that we are seeing and how thorny the relationship are between the two countries, how do you think it will move from here onwards? Who do you think can play that role of repairing the relationship? India is asking some tough questions, and India has actually said that Justin Trudeau's claims are preposterous in nature.
Yeah, no, I mean, the blame has been flowing bilaterally, so there's no question. I think that Canada needs to recognize that the Khalistani business had essentially died down after the 80s and 90s, and it has only become more prominent in Canada during Mr. Trudeau's time because he's surrounded by the Khalistanis, has been so from the moment he gained the leadership of the Liberal Party, and he's never disowned them. He's never criticized their violent and extremist activities, their hate speech and their violent speech. So in a sense, Mr. Trudeau has been complicit in the rise of Khalistani business in Canada. On the other hand, we also know that Mr. Modi's muscular policy, and the thing about saying we're going to go into your home to kill you, those kinds of utterances don't really lend themselves to a good diplomacy. And therefore, I think the perception of Mr. Modi in Canada is that he is somebody perhaps you will find difficult to do business with. And similarly, Indians, because of his own history, have no trust in Trudeau. So to repair the relationship, I think we got to dial this down. And I think Mr. Trudeau did not need to go into the House of Commons when he did initially. Now he didn't have to call a press conference. The RCMP had already done that for obviously legitimate reasons. They may have some evidence, obviously. But Mr. Trudeau did not have to inject himself into this and send it back into the stratosphere. He did. So in a sense, he is to blame for that. But we need to dial it down. We need to dial it down from India and from Canada. And the leadership needs to figure out how diplomats can come together and deal with it. And if there is blame to go around in terms of murders and extortion and things of that nature, if India has encouraged or has done that, some might say out of frustration because India has been sending all kinds of information to Canada to act on, to send some people back, extradite them. Canada hasn't done that. I mean, that's been happening from Mr. Trudeau Sr.'s time when Indira Gandhi had asked for extradition of some people. And Canada has never done that. So in a sense, I think Canada may have some blame, but that's not a reason for transnational murder or transnational crime. And therefore, I think we need to sit down and figure it out. Both sides need to do that. But if nothing changes in the leadership in terms of their attitudes toward each other and how they deal with this situation in some sort of perhaps with low decibels, then I think we may have to look beyond the current leadership in India and current leadership in Canada for our relationship to become normal again.
Ujjwal Dosanjh, one view is also that US is backing Canada, and this in a way has emboldened Justin Trudeau.
I don't think the U.S. Has done anything that they wouldn't have done. I mean, U.S. is part of the Five Eyes. They share information. We share information with other Four Eyes. That's quite normal. That's been going on for decades. So it's nothing out of the ordinary that U.S. has done, except U.S. also has a case that they are now prosecuting. But, I think the U.S. dealt with the case somewhat differently. I mean, the president did not stand up in the Oval Office and made a statement. The Secretary of State, Blinken, didn't say anything. It was some lowly State Department official who talked about it when the indictment was released. And therefore, I think America, despite the fact that it's a superpower, has dealt with the situation somewhat more diplomatically. I know there is a theory that America has been putting Canada up to it. I don't think so. I mean, they help each other. Five Eyes help each other. That's the norm here in this country. But I think Mr. Trudeau sent it to the stratosphere by his intervention in Parliament and now by his news conference. I think he's done that on his own because he's had some. There is a theory that he's had some. Some of his own political issues to deal with. Therefore, these two things, news conference and the initial intervention in Parliament, they've come in handy for him. He didn't need to do that.
You make an interesting observation, sir, and that brings me to my next question, that Trudeau may have wanted to create a distraction from his domestic issues. But what really explains the situation now onwards, in the sense that there was this perhaps a great degree of hurry on part of Prime Minister Trudeau? Would you agree with that? And what next in terms of when you say dial down? Can there be a potential dialing down at this stage?
Well, I think dialing down, by that I simply mean that the Prime Minister or the foreign affairs ministers need to kind of stop making commentary on these issues and let the diplomatic channels work on them. That's what I mean by dialing down. It has to be dealt with. There is a man who's been killed. There are 4 Indian citizens who are being charged with the crime, and there may be more. That's a real issue. The murderers, the killers may have nothing to do with India. They may have had something to do with India in the sense of being encouraged to do what they did. And that may all be divulged during the trial. In this country, you don't divulge evidence before you go to trial because it may taint the evidence and make it inadmissible in court.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me bring in the guests now. And this is a question to Michael Kugelman. Michael, the Indo-Canada diplomatic ties have been one of blow colder nature. How do you see these recent developments? And how much of that theory is believable that US is completely backing Justin Trudeau?
Yes, I mean, it's easy to forget, given how bad things are with the relationship now, that this was a quite a robust partnership for quite some time. And if you look over the last few years, trade ties between or trade volume between India and Canada has gone up significantly. Canada is a top 20 investor in India. People-to-people ties are very strong, as you well know. You've got very significant Indian diaspora in Canada, large numbers of Indian students in Canadian universities, and there's strategic convergences too between India and Canada over the Indo-Pacific, particularly when it comes to China. But I really do think that this Khalistan issue has really hijacked the relationship in the sense that it's made it difficult to move forward in those other areas just because it's become such a big tension point. And I think that the relationship has maybe not hit rock bottom quite yet, just because Canada's investigation of the Niger killing continues, and that could bring out more allegations that are put out there publicly, and that could then lead to more Indian responses that are very angry, understandably. So it's in a bad state. To your question about the U.S. And Trudeau, well, of course, I mean, the U.S. and Canada are allies. They're Five Eyes partners. They're allies. This is what allies do. They stick up for each other. And I think it's not surprising at all that the U.S. has consistently said that Canada's allegations against India should be taken very seriously and that India should cooperate in the investigation. It's quite significant that this week the U.S. government indicated that it agrees with Canada that India is not cooperating in Canada's investigation. But I don't think that we should overstate this. I think it's quite notable that the U.S. has been very careful in terms of how it's engaged with India over its own allegations against India for the alleged attempted assassination of Panoon. Unlike Canada, the U.S. has been very restrained in its public messaging about this very sensitive issue. It's let the indictments that have been unsealed do the talking in terms of bringing more information out there. So I think the U.S. is clearly very intent on balancing its alliance with Canada with its strategic partnership with India. And I think to this point, it's done a pretty good job with that.
So Daniel, here is the Prime Minister of Canada who begins day one of the entire investigation with a lot of escalation. He speaks about it on the floor of the Parliament. And on the other hand, the nature of allegations which are coming in from the US are backed by some kind of evidence, and there is a trial which is ongoing. Do you think when it came to Justin Trudeau, there was a great degree of perhaps pressure coming from within that forced his reaction on the floor of the House?
Well, if we're talking about what are Justin Trudeau's motivations, I mean, he did say in the hearing that initially he thought it was just another gangland killing, but then people within his own caucus of the South Asian community told him that no, India was actually behind it. So by his own admissions, he admits that, read between the lines, the Khalistanis in his caucus really wanted to push this on Niger. I mean, why did Justin Trudeau do this? I think there's a confluence of factors. I mean, were domestic political calculations involved? 100%. 100%. The reason why he went out last year publicly by himself in Parliament was to distract from the Chinese foreign interference scandal, which was just being up. And we know that there's 11 traitors, or we suspect 11 compromised members of our Parliament currently sitting right now, and Justin Trudeau won't release those names. So to avoid looking very weak on the foreign interference file, he has then gone DEFCON 1 on India, accused Modi and the whole government and this and that to go to the people and have the media put out the narrative, because, again, he funds the entire media in Canada that's mainstream. So the media now puts out the narrative, oh, Justin Trudeau, is he too tough on foreign interference? Look how tough he is. Justin Trudeau's protecting the country, blah, 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 blah. When the real story is, well, no, he actually sold out the country to the CCP. And, we also have findings now that, I mean, even our security agencies have said that the Khalistan movement was funded by the Pakistani ISI to disrupt India-Canada relationships and do that. So we come back to the point where I said a year ago, I mean, what you have here is you have a story of Pakistani foreign interference being marketed as Indian foreign interference to cover up for Chinese foreign interference. That's kind of where we're at on the original Hardip Singh Nijjar thing. Now, there is some basis to all this, right? We've seen the Americans release it. And the analogy I've used is this is a game of Clue, which if you're not familiar with, it's a murder mystery board game that's very famous. You need 3 things to win the game. You got to get the person, the suspect, room, and weapon. Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the candlestick. And if you're going to make an accusation against a sitting ally, you have to have the hard evidence. You have to have Colonel Mustard, Conservatory Candlestick. And then Trudeau came out a year late under oath with Colonel Mustard in the Conservatory. No candlestick, right? That's the intelligence versus evidence. And now you have India saying, haha, you have nothing. And Canada saying, well, no, we do have something. So it's true that Canada does have something, right? They have 2 of the 3. What they have doesn't meet the threshold needed realistically to start kicking out diplomats of an ally that's positioned within other strategic alliances. So that's what India is mad about, this technicality. Now, to expand the analogy one more point, so we're arguing over the technicality of this game, but the real issue here is you're actually playing this game with your ex-wife, and the argument you're having is not about who wins or loses the game. The argument you're having is about the reason you initially got divorced, which is your wife invited a Khalistani separatist to live in your living room who was shooting at you while you were trying to drink coffee in the morning every day. And that's the real reason you're fighting.
That's actually
so this is
very well explained to all the youngsters who may be watching my show through all those analogies that you have done here, Daniel. So continue to be with us. We have Terry Milewski is also joining us. Terry, the statement which was issued by the Indian government recently is really sharp and direct, and many would say that it has aggravated the situation further. India says that Trudeau government, it is talking about Trudeau government per se, not really as much as Canadian government, has consciously provided space to violent extremists and terrorists to harass, threaten and intimidate Indian diplomats and community leaders in Canada.
I think, if anything, the Indians are understating it. I think that for 40 years and more, Canada has done an absolutely pathetic job of dealing with the real threat of Khalistani extremism. I'm going back all the way to 1982 when Pierre Trudeau, as was pointed out earlier by Hugo Assange, said no to Indira Gandhi and she asked for the extradition of a guy called Satyendar Jain. Oh, that Parma, yeah. 3 years later, he blew up Air India, massacred 300 innocent civilians. So there's a very sad record in Canada that taints this whole discussion. If the Indians are hopping mad about Canada's attitude to the Khalistan menace, then they should be. I, for one, am with them on that. However, I do not believe that we need to go hunting for mysterious hidden motive for Trudeau the younger to go after India, if I can put it that way, on this file. After all, I mentioned Assange, you just talked to him. You know that as a passionate anti-Khalistani, who they tried to kill, by the way, in 1985, left 84 stitches in his head, that he was elected and re-elected in heavily Sikh ridings for 20 years as a politician. It's not as though you've got to be that only the Khalistanis have political influence. The road to power in Canada is through the Khalistani. I mean, that's just nonsense. You know, there's one or two here or there that get elected once in a while. So that's just to say that the idea that it's domestic political considerations is not going to win many elections. By the way, at the a year ago there was a poll on what Canadians thought about all of this, and people were asked what they thought about the Air India bombing. 9 out of 10 said, "Well, didn't know what they were talking about. Didn't know what the pollsters were talking about." That's how much attention they're paying to this file. A couple of other points. First, much has been made in the last few days about this issue. Trudeau has admitted they didn't have proof. That's simply not the case. Again, as Assange pointed out, no, that's not what he said. He said that at the time that this post came out a year ago, in September, that's when they had intel. Now, he hasn't said they didn't have proof. No, he hasn't. It's just been spun and twisted by his enemies. Now, finally, I want to make the point that the whole idea that Canada hasn't...
Okay.
Number one, the evidence is public. We can all read the FBI's indictment. It's on the internet. Read it and tell me there's no evidence. You can't do that. Number two, if you read it very closely and you look, for example, at paragraph 6 or paragraph 28, you will see the FBI, which is not in the fantasy business, quoting the suspect Nikhil Gupta, who is allegedly handling the murder plot against Panoon, tells the hitman that he's hired, it's not just Panoon, that another target of the same plot is Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. So it's the same plot. It's one plot with several targets, those two principally. So it's absurd to say, Canada's produced no evidence. The evidence is plain to see. Everyone can read it. And the idea that Trudeau and his officials met at least 2 or 3 times before he went public to raise this matter, that Prime Minister Modi knew all about it already before that meeting at the G20. All of this suggests to me that it's absolute bunk. That the Indians are saying that there's no evidence. And by the way, just one final quick point. India can't go on getting away with saying that when the same allegations about the same plot targeting the same people is raised by the Canadians, bunk. It's absurd. It's preposterous. When the same allegations made by the Americans are a lot bigger geopolitically, oh, well, we're taking that very seriously, and we're setting up a high-level committee,
so
blah, blah, blah.
There is the point that has been made by Terry here, Dr. Kartha, about India's reaction vis-a-vis the nature of allegations which have come, which is more or less similar from US and from Canada. One may say that here was the Canadian Prime Minister who jumped the gun, while he relying completely on intelligence, while the US allegations, they have taken it in the form of a trial which has begun.
No, you see, like what the former speaker said, the US attitude has been very different. They've tackled this in a very mature manner. They're going by the law. They've gone, we know exactly what will happen next. There's a process to it. And that's what is giving us an ability to react to that. Right? So, in fact, a number of these guys have been arrested in the US earlier. Many of these guys who have been linked to these, seek for justice. A couple of them were arrested, I think, in Fremont. They have acted against some of these so-called, I don't want to call them Khalistanis because there's no Khalistan, right? But whatever they are. So they have taken. In the case of Canada, he is so deliberate about this whole thing that he announces something in Parliament. He sort of explodes this whole thing. He knows very well it's going to make you completely annoyed. Then recently you had that whole meeting with NSA, which was leaked to the Washington Post in its entirety and with God knows what other masalas added. In such a situation, if I was still in the National Security Council, I would not talk to this guy because I don't.
Yes.
What is he going to charge? What is he going to leak? He's completely unreliable. So he knows. He's playing on the fact that he's made you so mad that you're not going to give him any data. You're not going to help him. So he'll go back and say, oh, India's doing nothing. That is not what the US is doing. So to that extent, where we've always said that if we can, we can sort of get things going between these. But let me make one thing clear. Our relationship with Canada is different from our relationship with Trudeau. Please make that distinction. We have a very good relationship. We've had a good relationship for years. Okay, there are these hiccups going on. You don't want that relationship spoiled. But this man is playing that game by saying, playing on this word of allegations. Then he says, I have reports, then I have something else, and I have something else. So right now, I would agree with what your first speaker said. We need to dial this down.
Okay.
Especially don't go for that bait which is constantly thrown.
Before I bring in Ambassador Pinnock, I will go back to Terry. Terry, there is a distinction being made here by Dr. Kartha that India's equation with Canada perhaps would have soured because of the reaction of the current Prime Minister. Do you think Prime Minister Trudeau has made the right assessment or has he really not made the assessment at all of the potential impact of the Khalistani separatism on the bilateral relations?
Well, he does seem to have an enormous blind spot, doesn't he, about the Khalistani menace? I mean, cast your minds back. I know the few Indians have forgotten it because it was such a fiasco. And I'm speaking of President Trudeau's visit to India in 2018, where he dressed up like a bridegroom and invited a convicted Khalistani terrorist. Okay, he personally didn't invite him, but his entourage didn't realize he invited a convicted Khalistani terrorist to a glittering diplomatic reception in New Delhi with the Prime Minister at the High Commission. Wouldn't look very good, would it? Well, duh, as the kids say. I mean, of course that was a diplomatic disaster. And this, yes, it totally colors what is happening now between the two countries. Trudeau is not the right messenger because of these failures in the past. And I can remember doing a story once about a political campaign in South Vancouver, which called Assange's old writing, where the World Sikh Organization, a separatist organization, a separatist lobby group, if you will, was picking the liberal candidate that it preferred. So it picked a Khalistani-leaning candidate over a secular moderate in the mold of Jean Assange. And for Justin Trudeau, this was fine. He didn't see anything wrong with that. And when I asked him about it, he said, oh, well, that's democracy. Well, that's exactly what it isn't. When the party brass imposes upon the electorate, well, this is we don't care which candidate you're supporting, we're going to impose one. It's the opposite. So there's a long record incident like that, especially between which have made Indians rightly mad. Justin Trudeau madder than they are at Canada. They were already pretty mad at Canada.
Okay, we'll try and connect with Ambassador. Ambassador Chakravarti, thank you so much for your patience here. You know, we are trying to make that distinction clearly between the current Canadian Prime Minister and India-Canada bilateral relations. Do you think this frostiness is because of the reactions of Justin Trudeau? And how much of that has to do with his domestic political considerations and not as much as the backing that he has from the Five Eyes?
I think before I comment on your question, I should add that during the early 90s, from 90 to 95, I was heading the, not heading really, I was the director of the AMS and the Canada division in the Ministry of External Affairs. And I dealt with Canadians, and I came away with a certain impression of how they, and the Americans also I dealt with. So, you know, somehow I feel that today we are seeing a repeat of their, you know, the way they deal with us.
Okay.
And Canada has lived up to that reputation that I saw and absorbed at that time. And but let's not forget the history. I mean, I think Justin Trudeau has absorbed a lot of things from his father, who also took a certain position on these separatists and terrorists, etc. They were doing it for whatever reasons that they wanted, people to vote for them or whatever, as we call in India, vote bank, etc. But I am more concerned now about how to repair the relationship as a development. And I'm not really happy with the way things have happened. There's no point in blaming Justin Trudeau. He may be doing it for whatever reasons. And we have just heard the comparison between how he has reacted and how the US has reacted to a very similar situation. So I'm concerned about the fact that the Five Eyes or whatever, in India we call them the white man's club, by the way. Oh, yeah. And so the white man's club is now trying to browbeat a country which was once a colony, of course, of one of the white men in that club. And so they think, I think Trudeau misjudged the whole situation. He thought that by mentioning it and that he would accept, he would get the Indians down on their knees and say, you are a white man, you are God for us, and we accept what you say without any reservation, and we will investigate and do all that. I think because he had no evidence. He kept on saying we have intelligence. Now let us see what intelligence or evidence he comes out with in the trial, because that would be the crucial. Like the Americans have come out with some evidence and have placed it in court, by the way. Nothing of that sort has happened in the Canadians. So I don't know whether the Canadians were being put up to it by the Americans for their own reasons, and they fell for it, or the Canadians thought this was for whatever has been discussed for domestic, various reasons. And of course, this very high moralistic standard that you can't do this, whereas they can do anything they want all over the world.
So, Ambassador Chakrabarti,
there is a whole history of assassinations by the Americans and others.
Yes.
So it is the kind of situation that in India we find very hypocritical, and this kind of double standard that we face all the time. I mean, geopolitics is full of double standards.
Yes. So since you've dealt with the Canadians,
where will it actually go?
Yes. So since you have dealt with the Canadians and the Americans in the past, and you say this is a similar situation as to how it was in 1990s, then who began the process of repair? Who took the initiative of the process of repair? Who started dialing down?
Well, it does happen that we have a lot of things in common. We have converging interests in many areas. And when governments change, repair is done. I mean, take, for example, the 1998 nuclear blasts that we conducted, and which, of course, led to a lot of sanctions, etc. But then we did repair it, if you remember. And who did the repair? It was the Clinton administration. I was there on the desk, and we dealt with all these things. So I think a repair action is always possible, but it requires political will on both sides, and not to go into a megaphone mode of accusing another country of this thing or that thing. We can do that too. We can accuse the whole world of many things, particularly the Europeans and the Western world. But then we don't do that. We are not. But look, let us not forget there is a long history of this. Ever since the Kanishka bombing, which was so badly mishandled by the Canadians, it left such a bitter taste in the mouth of Indians that I think that remains at the back of our mind. But in between, other governments came, and we clawed back, and we sort of got back to track, etc. But now again, it's getting, we have reached the sort of nadir of our relationship, which is a very sad day, because I never expected this would happen.
So, but during those days, you had the Clinton administration step in. But here we have a situation, Michael Kugelman, where the Americans also have concerns with regards to Indian agencies' roles.
Right, absolutely. I mean, not to underplay or soft pedal just how concerned U.S. officials are about these allegations. I mean, this is serious business. And indeed, as has been noted, the U.S. and Canada have been working very closely on sharing intelligence in terms of the Canada case. And the latest Canadian allegations, which of course India has rejected, these are incredibly serious allegations. We all know what they are, and the U.S. has said that it takes them very seriously, which essentially means that it endorses them. So things are pretty serious. But again, if you look at the U.S., India, Canada triangle, I think it's very clear, as we all know, and as this has been discussed, the Indian relationship with Canada is so different than its relationship with the United States. And I think it's just much easier for the U.S. and India to work through these tensions than it'll be for India and Canada to work over these tensions. You've got a very multifaceted relationship between the U.S. and India. The relationship has been deepening exponentially for a number of years. And for all we talk about how the India-Canada relationship at one point had a lot to it, as we know, mainly because of the Trudeau government and its activities and policies and positions toward the issue of Khalistan, the India-Canada relationship, it's been on a downward trajectory for several years. So, those U.S. officials that engage with India on some of the more sensitive aspects of the relationship, intelligence sharing, tech transfers, that type of thing, I think it's those types of officials in Washington that have been most spooked, so to speak, by these allegations, just because they have to accept the fact that they're working very closely and sharing sensitive information with a country that, according to the U.S., attempted a murder for hire action on U.S. soil. But it's not going to affect the trajectory of U.S.-India relations for all the strategic reasons that we're aware of, and just because you have so much cooperation on so many levels, from clean energy to climate change to higher education to trade, that there's enough insulation in the relationship to withstand the potential damage that could be inflicted on it because of the tensions over Khalistan. With Canada and India, you don't have that insulation in the relationship to protect it from this very serious crisis it's facing now.
Daniel, the concern, of course, is what now? In terms of how murky the situation is and how contentious this issue has become, and the bilateral tensions are continuing between the two countries, what now?
Honestly, I think what everyone's thinking is this all changes November 5th after the U.S. election. It completely depends. Is it President Kamala Harris? Is it President Donald Trump? They're both going to have probably pretty different views on this. I think Kamala would be much more likely to be highly antagonistic to the Modi government and back Trudeau for similar, ideological reasons. I think Trump would be the opposite. And then you have, Trudeau's perilous position. So for me, I just see Canada-U.S. relations would be put on a sort of Canada-India relations in some sort of cryostasis until Trudeau is gone. If Trump is in power, I don't really see. I see this just kind of languishing in the courts. And then, the ultimate, listen, when it comes to geopolitics, things matter more than one dead hard-up signature, whether you think he's a human rights activist or a terrorist. And that, taking 10 cents a liter off the gas pump is going to trump anything going on here. So if you have a conservative government in the U.S. and Canada for the first time in 15 years, we can finally get the pipelines built that we've been trying to get built. That's always been either blocked by a Democrat or a Liberal party that we've agreed on, right? Then once the U.S. and Canada become one major energy thing, if you have Donald Trump in office, one of the main, policy platforms is to sort of get an economic pipeline to India running through, the Arab Gulf states that are our allies, right? The anti-radical ones, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. You hear the Abraham Accords, that going through Israel to Europe and this is sort of the main economic goal of Western countries, if we're going to get down to it, right? It's the China One Belt, One Road initiative, right? You want them to, Iran and Russia want to try and control global energy, whereas the free world wants to sort of make an alliance of allied countries to run our economics through, bypass the more unstable ones. And listen, Canada and U.S. have tons and tons of energy. Under Trudeau, we shut it down, but we want to open it up. Countries that have tons of energy want to be able to sell their energy. What does India have? 1.5 billion people. What do they not have? Lots of resources. What do they want? Secure, cheap energy. If that's the possibility, it doesn't matter how many people, terrorists or this or that. If billions and trillions of dollars of energy and cheap and effective trade is on the table, all this stuff can go out the window and have a heartbeat.
Okay, let me give the last word to the woman on the panel. Dr. Tara Kartha, given the fact that the diplomats have been expelled, India has called back its own diplomat, the High Commissioner there. It looks like that, the heightened tension means that only we'll be waiting to see whether there'll be a regime change from Democrats to Republicans or continuity perhaps in America, and then things can change? Or do you think it will be a new path, which will be a new trajectory on which India and Canada will have to embark on its own without a mediator?
In the case of the US, without a mediator. In the case of the US, see, they have, like I said, a very clear legal process that will go through, no matter Trump or whoever comes. That's going to go on. And you can expect a lot more details will come out, right? So I think if we have the weight to go beyond this, as Daniel said, I've lost count of the number of joint working groups we have with the US on multiple things. The issue is, like you said, how do we dial it down? And I agree, much of this has to go outside the public sphere. And that is what the US and India have been doing. It is Canada which is the problem. Not Canada, Trudeau which is the problem. Because his position and his ability to survive depends on making as much of a noise as possible. And let's be very clear. The kind of things we saw in Canada, where they put out a thing saying diplomats, find out what is their addresses, giving money to track them. That kind of thing which went on is unbelievable. It doesn't happen in any other country. And I'm sorry to say this, I know it might sound extreme. It doesn't even happen in Pakistan. So there is a very genuine degree of anger. This is a democracy. You have to react to public discussions to an extent. But I would think right now what the Indian government should do is to put out the details of everything that we need. If they are dialing up in terms of data, let's also give the data.
Yes, there has been AI-generated imagery which has been put out, a social media campaign which is ongoing. So it clearly looks like that there are multiple factors at play here between the two countries. So thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador Chakravarti, Dr. Tara Karta, Michael Kugelman, Terry Milewski, and Daniel Broadman. We are now being joined by Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Of course, we are speaking about India-Canada relationship, which has become frosty. There are multiple views about how there's no coincidence in diplomacy per se, and this has to do with him trying to divert attention from his own domestic troubles. And this is also coming at a time when he's also enjoying full backing of the Americans.
Well, actually, if you go back to when the problem started, it was when he made a visit to India a few years ago. And it was clear that he had not come for any serious discussions with the government of India. It was actually to ensure that the Sikh vote could be consolidated behind him. So his main purpose was to visit Punjab. And then, as you know, some problems happened at the reception that was organized in New Delhi. They invited a convicted terrorist, and things began to go downhill after that. That is one part. The other is that if you look at his father, Pierre Trudeau, he in fact depended a great deal and a tremendous soft corner for the Sikh lobby in Canada. In fact, he had opened the doors for Sikh migration in a big way. And when we were telling him about the terrorist activity that was going on, that Parmar was a terrorist and was planning something, as you know, eventually Parmar blew up the Air India plane, and Trudeau refused our request to extradite him. And even after the plane was blown up, they didn't arrest him. So there is a kind of a genetic political disorder that he suffers from when it comes to the minority Sikh extremist community. Now, added to that is the fact that when he won the election, he had a lot of support from Jagmeet Singh and his party, and Jagmeet Singh is now showing his colors very openly, how he is actually a promoter of Sikh terrorism. He's put the photograph of Parmar in his office, and I saw an interview that he gave to the Canadian TV, and he refused, absolutely refused to accept that what he had done in putting up the poster of Parmar was wrong in any way. He totally avoided the question. He wouldn't answer the question despite prodding by the anchor as to, is this right what you're doing? Do you accept that is wrong? He wouldn't answer that question. So he was dependent on Jagmeet Singh for support, for political support, because it was a minority government and needed their support to survive. And now, of course, Jagmeet Singh has withdrawn his support, but will give him issue-based support. So he's vulnerable. Now he wants absolutely to win the elections. It is clear that he's behind the Conservatives in polls, at the moment 20%. But given his sense of entitlement, his mental makeup, and he wants to hang on to power. and therefore he'll make whatever concession is necessary to the Sikh community.
Ambassador Sibal, one of the Canadian leaders, in fact, he's the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier, he has said that he has in fact accused Justin Trudeau of using this crisis to divert attention from other controversies. And he has also gone on to say that perhaps a time has come that posthumously Hardeep Nijjar's citizenship should be revoked because it would mean correction of an administrative error.
Yes, I saw that. I don't think that this will happen at all. There's no question. I mean, whatever little chance Trudeau has to remain in politics, much less win the next election, will be totally, would be out of the question totally if he were to go down this road of even revoking Nijjar's fraudulent grant of nationality. So that's not going to happen. This is polemics which are going on inside Canada between rival political factions or whatever it is. I don't think we should take that seriously, except to note that there are people in Canada who question Trudeau's version and his motivations, which is important going ahead. But insofar as diverting attention from some other issues and therefore raising the India issue forefront, yes, he's being questioned on China's interference in Canadian internal affairs and the fact that some of his MPs and all, they got support from China. And he's been very soft on that. In fact, I saw somewhere when he was confronted with Chinese activities, he said that this is what all countries do. But when it comes to India, he's done, to my mind, a totally unforgivable thing, which is totally absurd, preposterous, that the kingpin of all this was our High Commissioner in Canada. It's ridiculous. And if he seriously believes that, and if the RCMP actually believes this, then they're not worth their salt. It's a political organization. It is linked to the Khalistani extremist terrorists. It is not a serious investigative organization if they have come to this conclusion in any way. Now, with regard to intelligence and this and that they were gathering intelligence, of course they were gathering information. Now he's mixing up intelligence and information, making information look sinister. Of course, it's the job of the embassy, any embassy anywhere, to see who are the people hostile to it, who are negative, who have prejudices against India, who might be actually seeking ways to harm India's image, etc., etc. So you keep a tab on them. And so you have local resources and you try and find out who these people are so as to know what is happening on the ground. This is normal political work. You try and engage with all kinds of people. And then, of course, in this case, this information might have been relevant if he wanted to revoke the OIC cards of those people who are very active in seeking death for our High Commissioner and for our Prime Minister, and burning his effigies and shoe slapping his effigies, etc., etc., and of course glorifying the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi. So the mission has to keep a tab on all this because there are dangers to our own security in India, and we have to know who these people are. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's making it sound as if they were gathering this information in order to give it to Lawrence Bishnoi so that he could go and kill these people.
Yes.
I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous, involving the High Commissioner and our diplomats in this.
All right. Ambassador Sibal, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV and sharing your thoughts here. We're putting out the entire show on ndtv.com. That's all from me on this edition of The Big Fight. I'll be seeing you next week. Thanks so much for watching.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 50 Pro.
world's first AI-powered pro-grade.
This is an important message for people living with diabetes from people living with diabetes.
When I was experiencing the symptoms of diabetes, I didn't know what was going on.
You go on the internet and it's full of horror stories. You don't know where to begin and you don't know what to believe.
I didn't understand about carbs, I didn't understand about blood glucose levels.
I was scared and I was worried.
I didn't understand diabetes full stop.
That's why the support I get as a Diabetes UK member is so important.
You can become a Diabetes UK member too. To join us now, just call 0800 144 5406 and become a member today for just £3 a month. When you do, you'll receive a practical guide specific to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year. Balance is filled with news and inspiring real-life stories from members just like you. And you'll receive regular emails and vital updates that will help you feel informed and supported. Plus, you'll help support research that could lead to better treatments for all types of diabetes.
Membership makes life better because you're not alone anymore.
Call 0800 144 5406 or go online to become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month, because membership can help you learn to live better with diabetes.
For Manu, every step is agony. But he's forced to carry heavy loads and bricks up narrow, steep flights of stairs, hour after hour, day after day. Life can be cruel and short for hard-working donkeys like Manu. With little food, water, or rest, they must keep going no matter what. Crude harnesses cut into their flesh. Horrific wounds and injuries go untreated. And when they've given all they can, many will simply be abandoned. You could help us treat more sick and injured donkeys. We won't stop until each one has a good life. But we can't do it without you. So please call 0800 035 9305 or text STEP 6 to 78866 and give £2 a month. Your help will be the first step towards a better life for brave donkeys like Monu.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people.
I don't think the U.S. has done anything that they wouldn't have done. I mean, U.S. is part of the Five Eyes. They share information. We share information with other Four Eyes. That's quite normal. That's been going on for decades. So it's nothing out of the ordinary that U.S. has done, except U.S. also has a case that they are now prosecuting. But, you know, I think the U.S. dealt with the case somewhat differently. I mean, the president did not stand up in the Oval Office and made a statement. The Secretary of State, Blinken, didn't say anything. It was some lowly State Department official who talked about it when the indictment was released. And therefore, I think America, despite the fact that it's a superpower, has dealt with the situation somewhat more diplomatically. I know there is a theory that America has been putting Canada up to it. I don't think so. I mean, they help each other. Five Eyes help each other. That's the norm here in this country.
At Tesco Mobile, our deals are so good you'll want to tell everyone. Oops. Get the Samsung Galaxy S24 with advanced AI for just $31.99 a month with Club Card prices, saving you a massive £306. And that price is frozen for your whole contract. Join the customers who saved £9.5 million with frozen prices last year. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Attention all little shoppers. Now you can get a little bit more with Little Plus. We're spending just £10 per month, just got a whole lot more rewarding. Grab your deliciously sweet bakery treats.
Just a
Get all the Lidl and download Lidl Plus today.
Life's full of times like this. Oh yeah. The gaps between the good stuff. Okay. Like killing time in waiting rooms. It's not long until you've had enough. David, it's time for some tombola. Bingo 90. While your car gets made all shiny. Deal or no deal's exciting. So your ready meal is piping. Grounded on the runway. Open for fun. Paddling on your staycay. Open for fun. Yeah. Well done.
With II's low flat pension fees, you could retire with more.
Really?
Open an interactive investor personal pension today.
जाने किसकी तलाश उनकी आंखों में थी, आरज़ू के मुसाफिर भटकते रहे। जितना भी वो चले, उतने ही बिछ गए राह में फासले।
मेरे हम नवा मुझे दोस्त बन के बोले नैना नैना बोले।
Mum and Dad love Bright Sun Travel. They book all their trips through them. Mum's business trips, fly drives or city breaks. I love beach holidays the best, and so does my dad.
For business, leisure or fun, call Bright Sun at all protected.
Make this Diwali royal with Royal Sweets. Enjoy authentic traditional sweets with your family. Order online at royalsweets.co.uk.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Osama Shah. There is a big flashpoint in Tamil Nadu politics, this time over a new row on the anthem. We'll get you all the details, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Tamil Nadu government versus governor, a new flashpoint in Tamil Nadu politics. The chief minister alleges that the governor, R.N. Ravi, insulted national unity by presiding over singers who skipped the word Dravida while singing the Tamil anthem. Tamil Nadu governor rubbishes the charge. Former Delhi minister and Aam Aadmi Party leader Satyendar Jain walks out of jail after a Delhi court grants him bail in the money laundering case. Jain was the first prominent Aam Aadmi Party leader to be arrested nearly 2 years back. Salman Khan receives an intensified security detail due to a new threat from the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. The police received an extortion message for Salman. Meanwhile, 5 more have been arrested in the Baba Siddiqui murder case. The Hamas chief's last moments caught on camera. The Israeli Prime Minister says that this is not the end of the war. The US calls for the war to end soon. And trouble for the Maha alliance in Maharashtra, though the Balasaheb Thackeray Shiv Sena refuses to discuss seat sharing with the state Congress chief. The Congress rushes a mediator to the Maharashtra state. Well, the Tamil Nadu government versus the governor, that battle has escalated further. There is a new flashpoint this time over the Tamil anthem. The word Dravida, it was omitted from the Tamil anthem. This event was being attended by the Tamil Nadu governor. M.K. Stalin, he demands the centre now to recall R.N. Ravi. Tamil Nadu says that the governor denies, in the meanwhile, the Tamil Nadu governor, he denies these charges. This row, it emerged over singers skipping the word Dravida in the anthem. The Tamil Nadu governor, remember, he presided over this event. And the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, M.K. Stalin, he has said, and he has attacked the governor, saying that the governor insulted national unity and that R.N. Ravi is unfit to be the governor. Tamil Nadu governor, in the meanwhile, R.N. Ravi, he denies Stalin's charges. DD Tamil, in the meanwhile, they have apologized for skipping the word Dravida. And my colleague Sam Daniel joins us to get us more on this. Sam, a new flashpoint there in Tamil Nadu politics, and this time over the word Dravida being skipped from the Tamil anthem.
That's right, Osama. It all began with the Doordarshan celebrating its 50th year in Chennai, and it had clubbed the celebration of Hindi month, the culmination of celebration of Hindi month as well. The governor presided over the function, and even before the function began, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin had written to the Prime Minister asking the centre to avoid holding such Hindi celebrations in non-Hindi speaking states, saying that it's an attempt to belittle the other languages of the states there. And he wanted the centre instead to celebrate languages of the states, particularly the classical languages, the richness of the classical languages. And he pointed out that no single language has been declared as a national language by the Constitution. And projecting one particular language, be it Hindi, is like belittling other languages. Hours later, when the program began, the singers, all of them are Doordarshan employees, when they sang the Tamil anthem, they skipped one line which has the word Dravida. And that again touched a raw nerve. The governor was the chief guest there, and Chief Minister M.K. Stalin immediately demanded the governor's recall, saying that he has humiliated the Tamil race, he has threatened the national integrity and unity, and he is unfit to be in this position. And he demanded the central government to recall him immediately, saying that making it clear that it's kind of a deliberate act by the governor. But an hour later, Doordarshan in a statement clarified and apologized for the mistake, saying that it was because of distracted singers and there was no intent either to humiliate the Tamil language or the Tamil anthem, and they called it as a mistake. The governor too, after that, in a statement on the X platform, denied allegations and claimed that he sings the Tamil anthem in its complete form with precision every time, and that Chief Minister M.K. Stalin knows about this, and he called this criticism by what he called as racist criticism by Chief Minister M.K. Stalin regrettable, something that lowers the constitutional office he holds. And this is where it stands. In the past, on the floor of the Tamil Nadu Assembly as well, the governor has had a kind of a flashpoint with the ruling DMK when he had skipped several lines from the prepared text given by the government, which also included words like Dravidian model government, and many leaders' names were also skipped, including Annadurai, Kamaraj, Karunanidhi, and a few others. So he has a kind of a record with respect to this kind of Dravidian ideology or Dravidian, the concept of Dravidian, the idea of the Dravidian concept which the ruling DMK often prides itself with. And we'll have to wait and see how this would turn, but certainly it's just not the ruling DMK, the key opposition, the AIADMK, BJP's own ally, PMK, all of them have slammed, and the PMK calls this as yet another form of Hindi imposition as well with regard to the conduct of that program celebrating the culmination of month-long Hindi celebrations in Chennai. Osama.
All right, Sam Daniel, thank you very much for getting us all the latest in that story. Meanwhile, in a significant development, the Supreme Court has granted bail to former Delhi Minister Satyendar Jain in a money laundering case. Satyendar Jain, an Aam Aadmi Party leader, he has been in custody since May 2022. This decision comes after his prolonged detention, highlighting the court's concern over trial delays. This news has sparked reactions across the political spectrum, with Aam Aadmi Party supporters celebrating the decision as a moment of justice.
अरविंद केजरीवाल को जेल भेजा, मनीष सिसोदिया को भेजा, संजय सिंह को भेजा, सत्येंद्र जैन को भेजा, जिसको मौका लगा उसको जेल भेजा, बाकी को डराया स्पीड में जेल भेजेंगे। करा क्या था भाई? गलती यही की ना कि देश के लिए कुछ काम करने की कोशिश की। अरविंद केजरीवाल IAS ऑफिसर थे, उनकी क्या जरूरत थी? सब कुछ छोड़ के आए थे, अपना कुछ त्याग करके आए थे, देश के लिए काम करने के लिए आए थे। इन्होंने सबक सिखाने की कोशिश की, यही अंग्रेज करते थे। अरे नेताओं को डर इस बात से नहीं है कि हम कुछ अच्छा कर कहते यार इनको देखा देखी और लोग आ जाएंगे बात करना।
Well, so Satyendar Jain there speaking to the media after getting out of the Tihar jail. Remember, he was one of the first arrests made in a series of arrests of Aam Aadmi Party leaders. He was arrested by the Enforcement Directorate on money laundering charges. Satyendar Jain, he is also the former Health Minister of Delhi. He has been granted bail by the Supreme Court, and this comes as a relief for the Aam Aadmi Party as well as Satyendar Jain, who has remained in jail for the past 18 months and more than and around 2 years in jail. Including him, there were other top Aam Aadmi Party leaders who were there in Tihar jail who have now been out on bail. In fact, my colleague Ishika joins us to get us more on this. Ishika, what does it mean for the Aam Aadmi Party now, Satyendar Jain coming out of jail on bail?
Well, Osama, it is certainly, going to have a lot of impact, and especially a big boost to the Aam Aadmi Party just ahead of the Delhi polls. And that picture certainly was very evident when Satyendar Jain walked out of the jail and three big leaders of the Aam Aadmi Party, that is in fact Manish Sisodia, Sanjay Singh and Chief Minister Atashi, were all seen showing the victory sign as he walked out of jail. So certainly, we have seen how Satyendar Jain did hold a very important position, not just in the Aam Aadmi Party, but also in the Delhi government at that time. So it is definitely going to boost their campaign as well, because if you see the campaigning so far that has been done by the Aam Aadmi Party, it has in fact focused majorly on how their leaders have gone to jail in the money laundering cases. Though, certainly Satyendar Jain case is a bit different. It is certainly on how shell companies were laundering the money. But here also, via the statements of the Aam Aadmi Party leader, it clearly shows how, in fact, they are going to, in fact, use it for their campaigning as well, because their line remains the same as to how the central government was misusing the agencies to target the Aam Aadmi Party leaders. Now, when we see, Satyendar Jain today certainly has got bail, but there are certainly, restrictions that have been imposed, and that include, travel restrictions as well. So certainly we'll have to see as to how much of a big role will Satyendar Jain also be playing in the campaign ahead of Delhi polls for the Aam Aadmi Party. Over to you.
All right, Ishika Verma there. Thank you very much for getting us all the latest in that story. And in Maharashtra, tensions are flaring within the Maha Vikas Aghadi coalition as Shiv Sena, the youth of Balasaheb Thackeray Sena, and Congress, they have hit a deadlock over seat sharing for the upcoming assembly elections. Sanjay Raut of the Shiv Sena, he voiced frustration over Congress's delay in decision-making, highlighting that while agreements on 200 seats have been settled, several key constituencies remain contested. Congress's Nana Patole plans to escalate the matter of about 25 contentious seats to the High Command of all allied parties. This internal strife, remember, comes at a critical time, with Raut criticizing some Maharashtra Congress leaders for lacking decision-making power, necessitating Delhi's intervention for every significant move. And my colleague Radhika has more details on this story.
What is happening is that Sena wants to finalize the seats. Of course, we know for a fact that out of the 288 seats, 260 have already been finalized post-marathon discussions that happened among MVA leaders. While Sena within MVA wants to finalize and release this list, Congress is waiting it out. Congress wants to send the list to the top leaders of the Congress party in Delhi, which is what it has done, which is what it did last night, post which it will take that final decision. Because of which the Sena leaders are not very happy. There is differences over seats within Vidarbha as well as Mumbai. Both the parties staking claim for several seats within Vidarbha and Mumbai. So yes, differences and disputes over close to 20 to 25 seats is what we are hearing. But at this point, Sanjay Raut also taking a jibe at Nana Patole as well as several other leaders within the Congress party, saying that Maharashtra Congress is not capable of making its own decision, as far as seats and candidates are concerned, and it has to go to the Delhi leadership all the time, which the Sena is not happy about. So yes, there is bickering going on. We also heard over the last several meetings, there had been arguments and sort of war of words between Sanjay Raut and Nana Patole over multiple seats. There have been times when one of the two leaders even walked out of some of the meetings. This is what we've been hearing, but we'll have to see how it plays out in the days to come. We know that 260 seats have already been finalized.
And on Friday, Samajwadi Party leader Akhilesh Yadav, he arrived in Maharashtra for a pivotal two-day tour aiming to strengthen the India Alliance's foothold there. Yadav, he will lead rallies in Malegaon and Dhule, pushing for greater seat share in the upcoming assembly elections. His visit, it underscores efforts to galvanize support and negotiate seat sharing among the coalition partners.
He will be conducting rallies in Malegaon as well as Dhule. He's in Malegaon today. His rally has already begun, is what we are hearing. Of course, in 2019, SP had contested in 7 seats, out of which it won 2 in the city of Mumbai. This time, however, post its Lok Sabha success, it is trying to get as many seats. We believe that SP has asked for at least about 12 seats. It will be contesting, the party will be contesting alongside India Bloc, which is the Maha Agadi here. We believe that talks are going on between MVA leaders as well as Akhilesh Yadav and other party leaders within SP to secure at least about 12 seats. It is seeking more seats within Mumbai as well as areas like Malegaon and Dhule are also being in the radar of Samajwadi Party at this point. But we'll have to see what happens in these negotiation talks. We believe Akhilesh Yadav will also be meeting top leaders of the MVA in the next couple of days in order to secure as many seats. SP is wanting to project itself as a national party. That's what it is aiming to do by securing as many seats as possible. And we'll have to see what happens post the discussions with the top India Bloc as well as MVA leaders.
And the latest in the Faridkot Sikh activist murder case, the Punjab police have linked MP Amritpal to Gurpreet's murder case. The DGP, he says that the crime was executed at the behest of the jailed MP Amritpal, adding that 3 accused have been arrested and that the terrorist Arsh Dalla is the mastermind behind this murder. My colleague Gurpreet Singh Chinna has more details.
This is a very sensational murder case which has been traced by the Punjab police, and we have seen the DGP Punjab. He has already made a lot of claim during the investigation of this case. He has already linked all the accused with the jailed member parliament Amritpal, saying that everything has been executed on the behest of member parliament Amritpal, who has already been in jail. So what we have learned from the police sources, they say this whole murder conspiracy has been executed by the handler from abroad, and Arsh Dalla is one of the main mastermind. They have already arrested the accused in this case, and during the course of interrogation, they are able to get a lot of evidence where they are linking this case to the member parliament Amritpal, saying it seems during the preliminary investigation there was some differences with the victim as well as Amritpal on this Waris Punjab organization, which is headed by Amritpal at this point of time. So a lot of things are being investigated by Punjab police before making such claims. So let's see how the investigation will be carried out and how this whole incident had taken place and how this murder had been taken place. They are looking from all the angles, and what we have learned from the police sources also, they may add the name of a member parliament Amritpal in the case, and after that they will further investigation to find out what type of target killing they wanted to execute in the state of Punjab.
And Delhi's battle with smog now need to intensify as air quality plummets into the very poor category, with an AQI nearing 300, signaling an environmental alert. Stubble burning, vehicle emissions and weather conditions contribute to the crisis, prompting calls for immediate action to curb this seasonal yet worsening threat to public health.
Delhi woke up to choking smog today. With the quality of air plunging to poor category, the PM 2.5 levels have hit 10 times higher than the safe limits. And the air quality index has become 293 with warnings of it worsening in the coming days. Despite anti-pollution measures in place, the government is scrambling to respond to this public health crisis. An orange alert has been issued across the capital.
The Delhi government has kick-started its 21-point pollution control winter action plan. This plan includes real-time monitoring of pollution levels across 13 hotspots in the capital, for the first time using drones.
दिल्ली के अंदर प्रदूषण का स्तर जो पुअर कैटेगरी में पहुंच चुका है, लेकिन जो दिल्ली में 13 हॉट स्पॉट्स हैं वहां पे प्रदूषण का स्तर उससे भी ज़्यादा बार-बार बढ़ रहा है। इसको देखते हुए 13 हॉट स्पॉट्स के लिए स्पेशल अभियान चलाने के लिए आज अलग अलग हॉट स्पॉट्स की 13 कोऑर्डिनेशन कमेटी बनाई गई हैं। PWD की तरफ से हर हॉट स्पॉट के लिए स्पेशल मोबाइल एंटी स्मॉग गन को डिप्लॉय किया जाएगा।
हम बच्चों को अवेयर करते हैं कि आप मास्क पहने और पानी का छिड़काव करें जगह जगह पे झाड़ू लगाने से पहले, ताकि धूल मिट्टी थोड़ी सी कम हो। योगा करें, कूड़े को ना जलाया जाए। एक्चुअली जो हमारे बच्चे हैं ना, ये बहुत ऐसे एनवायरनमेंट से नहीं आते, बहुत क्लीन एनवायरनमेंट से नहीं आते। जितना भी हम मैक्सिमम बच्चों को अवेयर कर पाते हैं, बिल्कुल करते हैं।
A special task force of 6 members has been deployed to ensure the enforcement of pollution control measures.
Transportation, industrial emissions, residential pollution and farm fires have collectively created a toxic recipe for Delhi's air. With the colder temperature expecting to trap these pollutants and the Diwali being round the corner, the need of the hour is long-term sustainable solution to curb this public health crisis. With camera person Rakesh Mahalai, this is Shreya for NDTV Delhi.
And on Friday, Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann urged the central government for practical solutions and compensation to address the stubble burning issue, emphasizing farmers' reluctance to burn stubble if provided with viable alternatives. Meanwhile, the Haryana Chief Minister, Naib Singh Saini, who is back in power after the recent assembly elections, he said that he was confident that farmers in the state would not burn agricultural stubble. Let's listen in to all those reactions.
नहीं माननीय हमारे चीफ सेक्रेटरी साहब अगर माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बुलाया है तो वो जाएंगे और वो जवाब भी देंगे। हमारे हरियाणा के किसान बहुत ही जागरूक हैं। मैं तो बहुत हमारे किसानों को प्रणाम करता हूं। मैं इसलिए करता हूं कि जो भी बात हम बोलते हैं उसको वो सहज अक्सर लागू करते हैं। कोई भी हमारा किसान पराली नहीं जलाएगा। हम माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट को इस बात से हमारे चीफ सेक्रेटरी साहब अवगत कराएंगे
और एफर्ट्स में हम कोई कमी नहीं करेंगे। माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट के भी जो आते रहते हैं हमें गाइडलाइंस हम फॉलो करते हैं। पहले तो जब हम आग हमारे यहाँ पराली को लगती है उस किसान के खुद के और उस पूरे गांव के फेफड़ों में से निकलती है ना, वो कोई कार्बन मोनोडाइऑक्साइड से तो सांस नहीं लेते तो ऑक्सीजन से ही है ना। लेकिन उसके लिए बैठना पड़ेगा। ऐसे मीटिंगें करके आ जाते हैं। अब मेरी मीटिंगें हुई हैं बहुत सेंटर के साथ, जी प्रेरित करो। ने कहा जी कंपनसेशन दे दो, कुछ इंडिया गवर्नमेंट दे दे, कुछ पंजाब गवर्नमेंट दे देगी। उनको बोलेंगे कि ये आपका कंपनसेशन है, आग नहीं लगानी है।
And Union Minister Avneet Singh Bittu has expressed support for the film Emergency, directed by Kangana Ranaut. Bittu has stated that the film does not portray anything objectionable against Sikhs, emphasizing that it accurately depicts the oppression faced by the Sikhs during the period of emergency in India. He has come out in defense of the film amidst controversies, suggesting that there were efforts to malign the film by those who perhaps do not want the action of that time to be revealed or discussed.
ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਦੋ ਵਿਦਵਾਨ ਬੁੱਧੀਜੀਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੇ, ਚਾਹੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲੁਧਿਆਣੇ ਤੋਂ ਨੇ ਜੋਹਲ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਚਾਹੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਦੇੜ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਤਖਤ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਟਰਸਟ ਦੇ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ, ਸਾਬਕਾ ਸੀਨੀਅਰ IAS ਆਫੀਸਰ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਤੇ ਦੇਖਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੈਂਸਰ ਬੋਰਡ ਦੇ ਚੇਅਰਮੈਨ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਸੀਨ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ
This is an important message for people. living with diabetes from people living with diabetes.
When I was experiencing the symptoms of diabetes, I didn't know what was going on.
You go on the internet and it's full of horror stories.
I didn't understand about carbs, I didn't understand about blood glucose levels.
That's why the support I get as a Diabetes UK member is so important.
You can become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. When you do, you'll receive a practical guide specific to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year. Plus, you'll help support research that could lead to better treatments for all types of diabetes.
As members, we're all working it out together.
Call 0800 144 5410 or go online to become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month. Join us now because membership can help you learn to live better with diabetes.
Well Man and Well Woman, the UK's #1 vitamins for men and women. Live life well. From Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company.
Right now, terrible things are happening to donkeys. They work all day in the blistering sun without food or water. They're suffering silently while their backs are breaking. Some are being abandoned and will be left to die alone. But the worst thing you can do to a donkey isn't to break its body. It's to break its heart. Because donkeys are loyal, loving creatures. They trust us to care for them. And when they're hurt and abused, they feel it inside too. But right now, you can do something incredible for donkeys. You can support the Donkey Sanctuary. Just call 0800 035 9318 and give £2 a month. Because your support can help protect donkeys. You can help us to treat the sick and the injured. You'll help to mend broken hearts so that they can learn to love and trust again. Right now, so many working donkeys around the world are suffering. But we can only be there for them with your help. So please, call 0800 035 9318 or text HEART7 to 78866 and give £2 a month to the Donkey Sanctuary because terrible things are happening to donkeys. Please, do something incredible for them right now.
Step into your future with learning that can take you anywhere.
This is really, really important on the side.
All by yourself. Listening to everybody say, be everybody else, can't you see?
Good evening.
Ain't nobody just like
The Open University. The future is open.